Hey everyone, I'm Chris Ashwell, co-founder and creative director of Cincy Stories. For those of you who don't know, Cincy Stories is a 3-time Emmy-winning media organization dedicated to building community through story. We do that through live events, documentary films, a radio program on Cincinnati's NPR station, and community engagement. This video is going to be the first in a series on how we create and produce our documentaries. We're going to share how we fund, shoot, edit, distribute, and anything else you'd like to know, so just leave your comments below and we'll try to cover it. In this first video, as you may have guessed, we're going to be talking about the Zhiyun electronic gimbals. So our very first electronic gimbal was the original Crane here, and it was revolutionary for us. It was amazing to have. It still, I feel, stabilizes just as good as the other gimbals. It just had a weight capacity problem for us. We were moving up to bigger cameras and bigger lenses, and so the Crane 2 we got a little over a year ago, and the ability to slap this guy on a microphone, a big lens, and have it balanced was perfect. So recently, Zhiyun was nice enough to send us a Crane 3 lab. And this isn't going to be an unboxing video or a typical review. We're going to talk about some of the practical ways we use this in documentary production. The uses of a product like this in weddings, in commercial productions, and travel videos. It's pretty obvious how useful a tool like this can be. But we wanted to talk about news gathering and documentary coverage and how something like this can really be useful to you folks out there who are looking to produce films like that. So we took the Crane 3 with us on a shoot and we shot some behind the scenes footage, and we're going to show you some of the ways we use this practically in the field. So there are going to be 1,000 videos explaining every feature of the Crane 3 lab. To go over a couple really fast that are really important to us. The first one, this handle here, unlike anything I've ever seen in a gimbal. I know the Weeble lab has an option of pulling this off, handle off, and putting it like this, but this is permanently like this. And what that's really first and foremost good for is on the older gimbals, if you wanted to go down to the ground, you had to go into an inverted mode. And then when you came out, you had to flip back out. And there was no way of doing that without ruining your shot for a moment when you were going in and out of inverted mode. With the Crane 3 lab, you're able to go right down to the ground and come right back up, and you're ready to go. So that's a huge feature for me. So the next feature is the ability to control your camera settings from the back of the gimbal here. Every camera is different, so you need to check and see if your model's compatible. The Sony a7S II, I'm able to change the shutter speed, the aperture, ISO. And the ability to do that from the back here just makes things a little bit easier. And then the image transmission. So I'm able to use an iOS device, in my case an iPhone or an Android device, and you put it in here, and you're actually able to use this as a wireless monitor. And the benefit to that is for one, it's bigger than my LCD on my camera, but also when I'm in crazy positions, I'm able to position this however I want, and the gimbal's never going to be blocking it. And lastly, the zoom servo is new on the Crane 3 lab. It allows for lenses like this. This is the Tamron 28 to 75 2.8, and it's got a pretty stiff, if you've used this lens before, it's got a pretty stiff zoom, and this servo has a greater torque than the follow focus, and it allows to push the zoom in very smoothly, and you can get some really interesting shots. I mean, we wouldn't often zoom during a shot. If something's happening in front of you quickly in documentary, it's really nice to be able to punch in and do it smoothly without having to ruin a shot if you need to use it. So quickly, I'll talk about some of the other equipment we had on the shoot. We had 2 A7S IIs, one on the gimbal, one handheld. On the gimbal, we had a 28 to 75 2.8 Tamron. Behind the scenes, we were using the A6500 and the Crane 2. All right, let's jump into some of the footage and see how we use the Crane 3. Quick background on the shoot. We were shooting a documentary with a group called Q Kids. Q Kids is a dance team, but really it's a second home for inner city girls in Cincinnati. So we arrived at the founder Marquicia's home. You can see we have the gimbal in a backpack, the camera's already connected, everything's ready to go. And I just have to put on the tripod on the base and we're all set to go. So this first shot that we got was Marquicia calling for her twin daughters who help her with the dance team down. This is perfect for the story that we're trying to tell. So we're trying to show how important this dance team is to this family. And it was great to be able to get them in their home, actually talking about working on the dance team. This is all happening organically. And so I'm able to get a shot of her, then I'm able to pan back and get a shot of the girls coming down the steps, and I'm able to follow them into the room. And using the gimbal here in this case, I'm able to move really quickly to follow the action. I'm not doing any kind of crazy movement with the camera here. I'm just kind of panning from one place to another, but then I'm able to jump and move from that place to another place to get my shot. So I'm moving here, get a close-up of her working on her notebook. I'm able to use the zoom servo here. I was able to zoom in a little bit and then kind of rack focus over to the daughter. We were using it just to get B-roll around the house, pictures of kids. Family's very important, so we wanted to show that. And we're just using very subtle movement here. So at this point I realized I might be able to use some of the audio that was going on, so I went ahead and slapped the microphone on there and it balanced perfectly. And then we were able to follow them out of the home. I really love this next shot that we got here because this really should have been a tripod shot, but I'm just sitting there locking in my arms, keeping the gimbal close to me, and I'm able to get this shot that really should be done on a tripod, but I can do it on the fly without having to stop anything. Getting some exterior establishing shots here, just again using the camera as kind of a faux slider. Here I'm panning down and walking forward. It's a shot that I like to use for establishing shots a lot. Just getting some very subtle movement on her address here. And we don't have behind the scenes footage here, but this is some of the gimbal use in the car, so we wanted to get some shots of her driving over, and it was great. It really stabilized very well. I mean, the car was really bumping around there, but the camera is pretty solid. Then we arrived at Q-Kid's dance studio. We were able to hop out of the car before them, get them walking up to the building. And then I was able to hop inside and get a shot of them entering the building, which with the tripod or monopod really would have slowed me down. We just wanted to show them setting up the studio, so I'm able to get these quick, interesting perspectives over the shoulder, able to use kind of a slider shot. I love using things in the foreground to show movement. Same thing with this, use the tree and the sign as a foreground for establishing shot of the studio. Same thing we used earlier with the pan down, walk forward. Here we were able to get kind of a low to the ground tracking shot, which is an interesting shot as they were getting ready for practice. In this next shot, we were actually able to use the zoom servo while we were in the middle of a shot. So we tried it out, and I think it creates a really cool perspective. So we're able to kind of, as we're circling, zoom in and out. A lot of times wide angle lenses are the go-to for gimbals, but I really like the effect that the compression has of the background moving when you're using a zoom lens. So here, again, we were able to get really low. They were standing up just a moment before the shot, so I was able to get down really quickly and get the shot that I needed. This is a great example of not knowing, this is not planned, so I have no idea when they're gonna be on the ground or not, but being able to go up and down with this gimbal was perfect, which is definitely the case here. I was really just trying not to get kicked a lot of the day, and I was successful at that. And then for these shots, we just did a slow push in and then had them look into the camera when we told them to. And it really helped to show just the passion and the pride and the confidence that Q-Kids has been giving them. So for these shots, we brought out some dramatic lighting, and the point of these shots were really just to be able to get some close-up of the intensity on their faces, again, just to show the passion for what they do. And I had no idea where their faces were going to be at any given time. So using a tool like this is great just to be able to capture that action and be where you need to be for the shot. As I'm shooting these, I'm not really, at this point, I'm not using much of any camera movement. I'm just moving just subtly to make sure that it's kind of framed where I want it to be framed. So for this shot, I had seen the dance once before in practice, and I knew that they split at the end of the dance. So I was able to do a push in as they split, and I think it's a usable shot that we'll probably end up using in the final film. So here they had some trophies in the back room, and we wanted to get shots of these just to show how incredible the dance team is. And so here we're just using the camera as a slider, just subtle movements back and forth. So in this shot, slowly pulling away from the trophies, I love the way that the trophies in the foreground really fly by the camera.
All right, so that's a little bit of the footage that we got using the Crane 3. Hopefully you enjoyed a little insight into how we make our productions. The Crane 3 is definitely going to be my go-to gimbal in shoots like that from now on. The Crane 2 definitely has its purpose still, mostly that it fits in my camera bag, and I have to bring an extra bag if I'm gonna bring the Crane 3. So if it's really run and gun, it might be the Crane 2. Otherwise, I'm really in love with this gimbal and I'm gonna be using it on a lot of my shoots. So thank you to Zhiyun for seeing the value in the content that we produce and for sending us the Crane 3 lab. We've really enjoyed using it. The Q-Kids project we're gonna be working on for the next few months, but we did make a trailer out of some of the footage we got to get people excited. So check that out now, and we'll see you next time.
Being a part of Q-Kids had gave me a lot of confidence. I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself to like just walk into the room and own the room like now that I do now. Being a part of Q-Kids dancing, this really means a lot to me.
Being a part of Q-Kids is important to me because it keeps me out of trouble. I get to go a lot of places with Q-Kids, places I never experienced before. It teaches me to never give up, and when I fall, get back up again.
To be a part of Q-Kids, it means to be different and to have confidence and not be afraid to take a risk and to be that daredevil that everybody wants to be and have that inner confidence.
Being a part of Q-Kids means fun and happiness. I got to see LA, New York, New Orleans. It was like a dream come true to see them places. Being on Q-Kids has changed my life.